How and why did it even get repossessed?
So this is a long story and also has some sensitive things in it. But to my knowledge, there was basically the cartels in San Miguel wanted to use the venue as a drug laundering facility, and the owners wouldn't launder for them. And so their next best option was to put them out of business so they could buy the building and then do that kind of stuff with it. I don't know if this is true. This is what the owners told me and kind of what it seemed like based off of everything that I saw around there.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they succeeded, you know. I mean, they're pretty powerful. They have a lot of connections. They had connections within the bank, within a lot of other areas that they were able to pull and tug and drain them over the course of 2 years until where they had to do it. So somebody else bought it. We don't even know who owns it, but nobody's done anything with it. And I think they're just kind of like waiting for like things to blow over and then like reuse it however they're going to use it. But I don't know.
You're telling me SOE got shut down because the fucking cartel bought it?
As far as I know, from what I could tell, I don't, but I don't know.
Yeah. Okay.
And that's just, my opinion of the situation. They drained them so that they could, put it out of it so they could use it, which is what sucks. You know what I mean? But it was just, it was a really cool venue because it was like out of the way where like nobody bothered you and you could do like whatever you wanted. And the owners were super cool. Like one time I was like, hey, can I like hard mount a zip line inside the venue? Like I have to screw into like structural members of the building. And they were like, fuck yeah. Like as long as I get to ride it afterwards. And I was like, there's no way I'm ever going to find a venue that's going to let me do stuff like that. You know what I mean? Like they didn't care if, like the insurance probably would have never, allowed that, but they were just allowing it, but yeah, that's kind of what happened. It's just an unfortunate turn of events. Otherwise we would be moving full of steam ahead. We were building like a lot of ground and gaining a lot of art and doing a lot of good stuff until that just like massive thing hit us. And we've just been trying to recover ever since.
Do you actually believe, like, when I think of San Miguel, the last thing I think of is a drug cartel? Do you think that actually exists in San Miguel?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. To my knowledge, it's a large, like, heroin distribution center. And I've talked to a couple sheriff's officers and other law enforcement people who mentioned, hey, like, we're, investigating this area and or the ranch for like money, drug laundering for like heroin and stuff. And I was like, well, I work pretty close with them. I've never seen anything like that from my end, and I don't think that they ever were, which is also why I think that they ended up getting shut down because they weren't.
Yeah.
But I just, I don't know. But it definitely is. You see some hood rat, or not hood rat, but like cartel types running around out there. It's the reason why it's a good place is because it's just out of town, just far enough to where there's not a lot of cop and law enforcement activity. Like I said, but I don't know. This is all just stuff that I've heard from people and things that, you talk to different people like the sheriff's officers and owners, and you kind of build your own like idea of what you think happened. And that's kind of like the conclusion that I came to.
One of the dopest things about SOE, like besides like all the physical technicalities of it in terms of like the people, the lighting, like all the equipment, the art and stuff, what I fucking loved about it is like me being like just an average person. Like a lot of us have work Friday night, Saturday night until like 9 or 10 o'clock at night. The thing is, SOE went until fucking like 3, 4 a.m. Yeah. So it's like I would get off work and it's like, oh, dope. I have 6 hours to still get there. So like that was my favorite thing because I usually always work Friday night, Saturday night, like especially like in the restaurant business. And I just remember meeting up with a shit ton of friends, taking like a car or two and just fucking going.
So much fun.
No, literally
so many people are like, dude, like those like 4 or 5 years were like the best years of my life. Yeah. I'm like, me too. Well, we had a great time.
Literally, like, you gave us something to do. You gave us a guaranteed fun weekend once a month where like something was happening. You were meeting up with people and you were going to a nearby city, which is out in the middle of fucking nowhere. Yeah. And like what you were saying, like the location was prime. Yeah. There wasn't like be as loud as you want. The cops ain't coming.
Exactly.
The cops don't even know it's there probably, right?
Yeah. I mean, they did. Yeah. Okay. But they're just, It's sheriffs and law enforcement area.
Okay.
And so there's only like, you know, 1 or 2 sheriffs for that entire area. So they're not going to just be, you know, they would come in, you know, and I'd be like, hey, like, you guys need help? And they'd be like, no. And I'm like, they're just in here to check out the hot chicks. Like they knew, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So they would just do it, but they were cool, you know, like we weren't doing anything wrong. And so they weren't doing anything to us. So, yeah. I mean, it definitely, you know, drew some heat from them. Like they're like, oh, what's going on here? You know, and they would also post up sometime looking for DUIs and stuff.
Yeah.
But we were pretty good about like over the radio announcing like, hey, over our intercom and saying, hey, like everybody don't drink and drive. If you do, like we'll find you a ride. And people would come up. You'd get like 2 to 5 people per event that said like, hey, like I wasn't planning on drinking. I ended up drinking. Like if you can find me a ride. And I would just say, hey, somebody needs to go to Paso, somebody needs to go to St. Louis. Yeah. And then people would just come up and take them. It was like the coolest fucking thing I've ever seen. You know, it was very like inclusive and very like community driven, which is something I've always wanted to like create and something that I've always thought was missing every time I go to another community. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's usually just like a company that's throwing it either because like the DJs just want to DJ or the dudes just want to make money. And they weren't really concerned about like cultivating like a community that like cared for themselves. And that was always like my intention was to try and, you know, make that. And I think that community is really important for people's mental health and for happiness. And, you know, you can't find that a lot of times. And this was a place that you could just come no matter who you were and you wouldn't get judged. And everybody was like super fucking cool. And, you know, I thought it was a great thing. You know, I'm going to be working on that for the rest of my life in one fashion or another. But I learned so much about, you know, how to do that. And my intention is to, as part of our website that we're building, is to put the blueprints for how I did everything so that somebody else in somewhere in some small town can create their own events